summer of 1992, which was the summer of Achy Breaky Heart, and Baby Got Back. It was a doubleheader. It was also the summer that I became a man, in more ways than one. I was hanging out with my friend Mike D, who's one of my oldest friends, one of my best friends. I had just graduated from high school. He still had a year left. And he was literally, the next day, was going to Germany as part of a German club trip from our school. And we were just hanging out late one night, and we got hungry. And we're like, what's open? Where should we go? And we felt like going somewhere. I just killed mine. You started it. And so we decided to go to Dunkin' Donuts. We wanted to go somewhere, so let's go where the place is open, and that's the Dunkin' Donuts shop across town. So we headed over there, and as we approached the entrance, we saw that just ahead, up by the interstate underpass, there was a car that had been pulled over by a cop. And I thought I recognized the car. So I asked Mike to go drive around and do a U-ey around the cop so I could see who it was. He reluctantly agreed, because you should know that Mike and I, although we grew up about a half mile apart in the same small town, he grew up very differently than I did. His family is very Catholic, and I was raised guilt-free and Jesus-free. So we're both really good kids, though. Neither of us got in any real trouble, anything remotely illegal or morally wrong. But I was also very timid, very non-aggressive. I didn't start anything. I was some people are passive-aggressive. I was passive-passive. And I had also, unfortunately, very recently had a couple of very innocent run-ins with the local police department where they had accused me of doing some things that I very obviously didn't to me. And if anything drives me nuts, it's being accused of something I didn't do. So that combined with the fact that I didn't have the Pope in the back of my head saying, what would Jesus do? I decided on the way back past the policeman, after I realized I didn't know who had been pulled over, it was just a couple of kids, I decided I needed to let him know that he was harassing these teenagers. So in my infinite wisdom, I leaned over in the open window while Mike was driving and yelled as loud as I possibly could, "Dick!" Which seemed like a really good idea at the time. Brilliantly enough, we decided to continue our journey to Dunkin' Donuts. Are you feeling the cop donut irony yet? Which was like 200 yards away from where we were at the time. So I just verbally assaulted an officer of the law, and we pulled into the donut shop. So we go in, and I get the lemon filled. We get it to go, and we head back out into the parking lot where we see our car has been parked in by a very unpleased-looking state trooper, who then told us in no uncertain terms that we had to get in his car, and he needed to talk to us, and he said, "You first, did you?" And he pointed to Mike first. And then Mike handed me his donut and gave me a look like... So he got in the car for a couple minutes, came back out, didn't say a word, and then I went in. And he proceeded to tell me in no uncertain terms that he was just checking to make sure we didn't have any problem. There was no mention of dicks or any genitalia. This was very northern Indiana, by the way, close to between Chicago and Detroit, very urban in mind and sound. This guy must have been from deep southern Indiana because I felt like I was trapped in the Dukes of Hazzard episode. Because it sounded like this. He said, "Is there a problem? Because we just want to let you know, if we would pull you over if you yell like that, just to find out if there's a problem, because we don't make sure you have a problem. Do you have a problem?" And I repeatedly said, "No, sir," as sarcastically as I could muster, because I was still feeling like I had some balls at the time. I just turned 18. He eventually asked me if I had my driver's license on me, because apparently Mike had forgotten his, and he was flying to Germany the next morning and had already packed it. So he said, "Do you have your driver's license?" I gave it to him, and it said, "I need corrective lenses to drive." So he asked me if I had my glasses, and I said, "No, I wear contacts." And then he actually leaned in to get a closer look to make sure I was wearing my contacts, and I sort of mockingly went like this. And he actually did get about an inch away from my eye to make sure I was indeed wearing them. He said, "All right, you go ahead and drive your friend's car home then." I said, "Okay." So I got out and got in Mike's car and proceeded to leave. As we noticed, the cop had actually backed into the adjacent restaurant to follow us out for 5 miles, like a dick. But I was actually quite proud of myself at the time. But the proudest moment was when Mike got back in the car with me. The first thing he said was, "Man, what a dick." That's my story.
right, Chris, notice how we all